So let's get to the meat of it, man. I'm sure this is the part you want to talk about the most. It's going to be the encore perspective for these two teams. So when it comes to on-court, man, I mean, let's talk about this here for a second. Give me your first impressions on how this trade will affect each team. Elephant in the room, Luka, LeBron, how they work together. How do you kind of see all that playing out?
Yeah, I mean, Luka LeBron, that to me is one of the more interesting aspects, of course, right? I think that it'll work out fine, in my opinion. I think people don't realize how much LeBron's played off ball in the last couple of years, specifically. 2 years ago with the D'Lo and Austin Reeves, last year more with Austin Reeves, and this year, like Austin Reeves is the nominal point guard, right? And so he has been off ball. Look at his off ball shooting numbers. The highest of his career have been the last 3 years, right? And high volume there as well. So if you're putting LeBron as a second side initiator, that's a heck of a deal for someone to deal with, right? It conserves
Sure.
LeBron's energy to have Luka run the show. His outside shooting has progressed to such a point that they can blend well together. And Luka is the same thing, It might be your turn, my turn, like it was with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. But last I checked, that show got them to the finals. Like
Right.
it did really well. How much more so with two guys of the degree of Luka and LeBron, who can both take turns in different two-man actions. Both can play out the post. Both can shoot the deep three. Both can get others involved in different ways. And you can stagger them in such a way. I'm sure Coach JJ Redick will find a nice way of doing that, where you have one all-world level shot creator and advantage creator on the floor at all times, which is wild. Like,
For
I'm
sure.
sorry, no disrespect to Kyrie, because Kyrie is upper echelon, but LeBron's upper echelon. And you have
Mhm.
LeBron and Luka in that same category. That's crazy. And so I think that part will work itself out. The important part is figuring out, okay, how do we put pieces around that, right? Because the Lakers, as currently constructed, I would not say are a team that Luka is a perfect fit for. You do have some defensive-minded players, Jared Vanderbilt, a Dorian Finney-Smith, of course, but Jared Vanderbilt definitely shrinks the floor because he doesn't shoot the ball, So you are looking at Dorian Finney-Smith. That's great. Another guy that would have been a great fit was Max Christie, but he's obviously gone. So you look at that, you try to see, okay, where does Rui Hachimura fit in all of this? If he does. And then I think what you're also looking at is the center spot, which that's the elephant in the room, right? It is the
Yeah.
big. I make a joke all the time, but if Jackson Hayes is the answer, I don't want to know the question. But kidding aside, like Hayes is a rotation level player. If he's your starting center, you're probably in trouble. But the archetype that he is the perfect type of player for Luka Doncic. We saw
Agreed.
that last year between Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. You have these rim running types who play above the rim, that vertical spacing, able to crash hard in the pick and roll each time and give Luka that lob threat at all times while he manipulates the defense heading to the basket. Right? Jackson
Right.
Hayes is not as good at that, but he is. That's his archetype of player. So you
Mhm.
want to look for that. I would not think, and this is interesting because when AD was still with the Lakers, I thought, okay, what would be cool? A Miles Turner type, a Brook Lopez type, like a center who could space the floor, play center next to AD, but on the offensive end can just kind of provide that spacing from outside, right? That type of player doesn't exactly vibe with Luka Doncic. We saw what an awkward fit it was with Porzingis, with the
It
pick and
was.
roll and pick and pop, and how Doncic is kind of geared to a certain type of guy. So I think now, subtly it's changed. Now you do look at a Walker Kessler, even though I don't think that works because Utah, come on now, like they're going to drive a hard bargain, right? But
Oh yeah.
maybe you could look, you have one more pick to shop around, matching salary. Maybe you look at a Nick Claxton, maybe you look at much more likely a Daron Sharp, right? Maybe you look at Robert Williams in Portland. You try to identify, and that's going to be the challenge for, Rob Pelinka, identify the type of archetype that you can get a decent price point. You don't want to mortgage your whole future for it, but a guy who could fit as a bridge center, as he brought up in his press conference earlier. Then look in the offseason when you have a little more space, more picks, and you're like, hey, let's go get our big.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. I want to start with what you were just talking
Yeah.
about, the Luka pick, the Luka fit with everybody. And I agree. I think that Jackson Hayes is a good type of player for Luka to play next to.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up those two centers in Dallas, and he made them look so good just with their rim running and him having that pinpoint passing. And LeBron and JJ talked about Luka on a pod way back when they had the Mind the Game pod, and they were talking about how great of a passer he is, and the fact that he can pass out of any double team. He's like one of a few players that can do that, including LeBron, including James Harden. Luka is of that caliber. So you think about that, he's going to look Jackson Hayes to look probably better than he's ever looked in his career. So from that perspective, yeah, it could work for sure. He's just not enough. He's not as talented as either of those guys in Dallas. He just makes too many mistakes on the court. He's kind of a little bit slow to kind of read how things are breaking down. So they need to upgrade there. I think if Hayes is coming off the bench, okay, fine, that could work. But they need a legitimate starting center that can really fill the void. And yeah, preferably be of that same type of player that can run to the rim and catch lobs from Luka and get putbacks and things like that. And then also something that we haven't talked about yet when it comes to the fit with Luka's defensively, the fit. Man, Luka and LeBron are some of the best offensive players in the world. Defensively, different story.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. I don't know how I missed that. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. You think about what the Luka struggles in the playoffs this last spring and how teams were targeting him and how he was just an absolute turnstile. I mean, there were some games they got blown out because he would give up nonstop buckets to whoever was playing him. And with LeBron, yeah, in the past, he's been all NBA or all defensive first team, but not anymore, not at 40. And he has moments where he can be solid, but overall, he is diminished as a defensive player. Jackson Hayes is not strong in that area. He's not quite as disciplined enough to be like a Derek Lively and those guys. Reeves is okay, but he can be targeted on defense. Really, the only plus defender, or one of the only ones on this team, is Jared Vanderbilt. And you were just talking about how offensively he can muck stuff up for the Lakers. So when you think about all that, it's like, well, I don't know if they're going to be competitive enough defensively to make this work. Finney Smith helps, but still, I mean, if you have, it is a lot. It's a lot to cover for. Like if it's Hayes and Reeves and Luka and LeBron, like there's a lot of weak spots on the court. So, you know, if they're going to get a center, they definitely need to get a plus rim protector. That's somebody that would be crucial to help kind of shore up some of those holes there for sure. And then backtracking a little bit more, you were talking about LeBron specifically and how he's played more off ball in the past couple of years, maybe giving more power, more leeway to AD, more power leeway to Austin Reeves, giving those guys more freedom to make plays on the ball and be themselves. I think you can do the same thing here with Luka for sure. When you look at the positional breakdown at this point in his career, I mean, he plays the majority of his minutes at the 4, 87% on cleaning the glass. And then he actually has played 10% of his minutes at center. So that's something that we should plan on seeing too, at least until they get somebody else to kind of shore up the middle, is LeBron at center. I saw somebody say recently, I think it was on Twitter, that he can embrace more of like a Draymond Green role at this point of his career, to where he's that like short roll passer off the screens. He can like find the lob threat or the corner 3 ball off of a screen, or just kind of be that Swiss Army knife. Like, hey, I'm just going to just do what's needed. Like I'm going to be a rim roller. I'm going to be a rebounder, a passer, whatever. Key defender at certain points of the game when he can do it. I think if he embraces that role, I want to see some pick and rolls, Luka LeBron. That would be a lot of fun, I think.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think they can work together really well in that way. They're both super smart players, so you know they're going to figure it out at some point. So I do want to see that. And LeBron's three ball has been pretty consistent this season. Looks like he is shooting about 38% from 3. So, I mean, if he's going to be off ball a little bit more and he needs to hit the spot up 3, he can do that. So, yeah, I don't think it's a seamless fit. I agree with you. But there's ways to make it work, especially if they make a move or two at the deadline and kind of shore up some holes. They can be a deadly duo for sure.
And we do have to remember that this is also, I mean, LeBron has at best a crazy enough 2-3 years, if that. I would lean more to 2. Like, this is definitely something that I look at as more, okay, right now, it's probably, it like you said, the potential of being awkward, kind of clunky is there, and there's going to be a learning curve for sure. But gradually, you know, this is the trade for the 25-year-old super duper star, right? So it will be a transition period, a bridge. And I think it's almost interesting where you did have, it would have been a natural bridge from LeBron to AD, but AD wasn't maybe the type of player to carry it like LeBron had been. Whereas Luka is that type of guy, but almost because of that, it's going to be that little awkwardness there because you're basically two of the same type of player who, due to the respective parts of their career, essentially play in the same type of position.
Exactly. There's a little overlap there for sure, but hey, I think LeBron, he's going to be the guy, in my opinion, that takes a little bit more of a back seat and adjusts his game to fit with Luka, what Luka does, because he understands that, hey, my time is ending. Luka's is just starting. So it's more important at this stage for Luka to find a groove with this team, to find a place where he fits in. And LeBron has played all 5 positions in his career. Luka has not done that. Like, Luka's on ball, and that's it. Like, that's what he's going to do. But for LeBron, it's like, hey, I can be an off-ball guy. I can be a short roller. I can dive to the rim. I can spot up, whatever the situation calls for. So he's probably going to say, hey, what do I need to do for Luka to be more comfortable? And yes, there will be times, especially when Luka's off the court, LeBron will do what he does. But I think he's more flexible in this situation. So, no, I 100% agree with that.